pop culture has been huge and overwhelming. So because that exists online and in online communities, I think that it's only time that people start to listen to it and to pay attention and see that reflected back in normal pop culture. I think a great example of that is the episode of 30 Rock. I don't know if you saw this episode where...
No, I'm sure I didn't.
I know, I don't really watch it either. But they quote and they sort of make fun of the Jezebel site, which is, female feminist response to pop culture. And that was sort of an indication like, okay, so not only is this community generating a ton of written work, but people are actually paying attention and listening to it, and it's resonating with certain people. Mm-hmm. And that's being reflected back in what you actually watch on TV. So it's actually coming off of Twitter, and Facebook and our messages and our comments to each other. And it's actually being reflected back in our own popular culture, which is sort of our language that we all know and speak to each other. So I think in that respect, that's the writing on the wall.
Is that because members are actively kind of trying to share it with people outside of the community, or is it a more organic process where you happen to have other relationships and because of social networking, they're going to pick up on
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think that people who make pop culture, who write for television, do want to shake things up. They do, or they are feminists, and they do believe in sort of telling different stories that aren't the status quo. So they're on those blogs, they're on those websites, and they're actually part of that community. It's just getting to that point where they're starting to be comfortable enough to perhaps write it into their material or include it in, and it's recognized as sort of a discourse, I guess, now. Whereas before, I'm assuming, we didn't really have a critical mass of people generating enough content, which is true and not true. I mean, you could say we were there because we have been here, but now it's now only that people are paying attention because of social networking and because of the being able to link back to things and retweet things and share things so much easier.
So are you seeing something similar happen in the fine art world in terms of artists who are getting opportunities to show work or being looked at critically?
I would assume so. I don't know. I have no idea, actually.
We should probably define the we for the benefit of anyone watching, because I've started this in the middle of our conversation. Who's the we? This community that you're...
Oh, that I'm referring to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd say the we is sort of the feminist online community. I would even extend it to women who exist online who are trying to change something that exists within the culture, whether that be art, pop culture, television, film, that sort of thing. Women who are looking for a different alternative media form.
So not only sort of creators of art per se, but it's broader. It's a broader community than that.
Well, yeah. I mean, creators now is such a loose term. I mean, are you a tweet creator? I mean, a lot of people take time and energy crafting tweets. Okay, that's not an artistic practice, but you're creating something. You're generating content. So
have you seen? Do you follow Hyperallergic? They have a blog. They had a post about ambient creativity.
Oh, really?
And how all of us are. Like you just mentioned, tweets, even just creating the tweet is like an act of creativity.
Yeah.
And all of these opportunities that technology allows us to do that in almost a throwaway fashion. And does it have an impact on our ability to create, more monumental works? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Do you feel, do you think it drains your creative juices, or does it...
It depends. I think
strengthen them.
I think it depends on who is in who do you. So in this case, we're talking about Twitter, right? So it depends on who you follow. I mean, if you follow a bunch of other people, like-minded people, then it can be extremely rewarding. When you tweet an article and somebody says, "Oh, that's amazing. Have you seen this and this and this?" And you follow this string of thought, or you go onto somebody's delicious bookmarks and you can see their whole thought process for the week. What sites they visited, what they bookmarked, and how they got from one site to the other, and how it all sort of makes sense not so much in a discursive place like it would perhaps in an essay, but it's like the basic building blocks of a thought process, and it's more, I think in that sense, it's definitely stimulating. But then you can post things on YouTube and get a ton of hate comments, and then you feel, not so welcome in this online community anymore, and you're getting threats of violence, or you're getting, called different names, and really, I mean, you're just uploading a video and you get sort of this harassment. So that makes you feel like shit, obviously. So I think it depends on what community you're in and what you're doing in that space.
So tell me about Queer Carrie and how that idea came to you and where you are now in that series.
Sure. So the Queer Carrie project started because I really wanted to find the most highly gendered source material, pop culture source material that I could find, that women would instantly recognize the characters, whether they were a fan of the show or not. They could see a character and know who she was. Not perhaps identify with her, but be able to identify her. Sex and the City was that pop culture text. And as I began watching it, it struck me how smart and funny and interesting that these women were, and how they were really picking apart social expectations of themselves as women living single in a city in what was sort of modern times, which still does sort of resonate today if you don't look at some of the outfits and the hair.
The cell phones.
And the cell phones, yeah. So I decided to go on with the queering because they talked for 6 seasons about how dissatisfied they were with their relationships. And I thought, God, this would be such an amazing show if they went one step further, and instead of just talking about it, they did something about it. Because in seasons 1 through 3, they were really dissecting things at a rapid rate, where by season 4, you would think something would have changed. So I really wanted to give them an option, like another option, and I decided to make a remix narrative where I originally intended to queer all of them, but then with the source footage I had access to, which was, what aired on television, I just queered Carrie Bradshaw and made her come out. And so it was, so that's the queer